Good morning. It is totally my pleasure to be here with you all. As Dean mentioned, I am a Midwesterner, but I don't know if you all, so I went to college in Santa Barbara at Westmont College, a similarly lovely place. And you could always tell who the Midwesterners were because we were the ones that went to the beach when it was like 58. We were like, hey, it's warmer than at home, right? Like I could totally swim in this. I constantly was trying to go to the beach and go swimming, and finally my roommate was like, hey, it's always like this, okay? Like you don't have to go to the beach just every time you see the sun. It's gonna be there tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But I will tell you, I never got used to it. I never got used to the extraordinary beauty of the ocean and the kind of vibrant, creative, adventurous spirit of California. I loved the years that I spent here. And to be honest, we were just talking about this earlier, there was tremendous irony that I speak in chapels anywhere, but particularly that I ever spoke in my college chapel, because if I'm going to be honest with you, I was not a attender of my college chapel, really at all. So when they, several years later, asked me to come speak, a couple college friends were like, oh, you're speaking at Westmont's chapel? Did you know they have a chapel program? Should I draw you a map to where they have this chapel program? And I tell you this because one of the things that you're here to do is walk your spiritual journey, whatever that looks like, whatever that means, as honestly and deeply as possible. And for me, that was a mess. It was winding, and it was difficult, and it was circuitous, and I made a lot of mistakes. Frankly, I got in a lot of trouble. But when I left Westmont, I left as a Christian person who had wrestled through my questions and my fears and my doubts. And I'm so profoundly thankful for every step on that journey, because what it brought me to was a vibrant, grounded faith that has been the guide and the center point for the rest of my life. And so one thing I always say on college campuses, don't worry if your spiritual journey looks messy. In fact, the messy part is sometimes the most important part. So give yourselves and give one another tremendous space and grace and freedom to ask questions, to wonder about things, to say things out loud like, I'm not sure I believe this part, can you help me? You are in the perfect place in the perfect season to ask all of the questions you've been waiting to ask and maybe have been afraid to say out loud for a long time. I was and still am a pastor's kid, and one of the things that goes along with being a pastor's kid sometimes is you spend more time in church by the time you're 17 than like most grown-ups do by the time their life ends, right? And there were so many good things that came with being a pastor's kid. I'm so thankful for that. But when I got to college, I needed a tiny bit of space from church life and ministry life. And as I journeyed, I was an English and French major. As I read, as I wrote, as I asked questions, what I found was that for a long season in my college years, I was not particularly comfortable in a church environment. But do you know where I was very comfortable, where God met me in his graciousness, in his love, over and over and over, was on the water. There was, at the most delicate, most significant season of my spiritual journey, when I was honestly wrestling every day with, is this the tradition that was handed to me, right? Like, I'm Dutch, I'm 5'6", I'm a Christian. These are unchangeable things about just the way I was made. I was asking, do I get to decide? Do I get to build something that's my own, or is this just handed to me the same way my ethnicity or my height have been handed to me? In the very most tender point of that season, where I almost walked away from everything, I had this sense inside myself that I was not ready for church. I was not ready to be involved in 17 different campus ministries. But I wanted to connect with God every day, and I knew that he would meet me on the water. And so I went to a cliff near my campus every night that I could. And I sat, and it was in those moments on the water, watching the wind, listening to the sound of the waves, that I reconnected the fundamental, deepest parts of my spiritual relationship with God. And so I just want to encourage you. Don't fake this journey because there's pressure to be further along than you are. You are in the perfect place to be as boldly honest and to ask every question. And you're surrounded by people who would love to help you. The professors and staff and faculty at Westmont were so patient with me. They let me ask every question. They let me make every mistake. They gave me second chances and third chances and fifth chances, and I needed them all. So don't let this season pass pretending things are fine on the inside. Let this season, while you're here in this very special place, be a time when you open up your heart and your soul and do the deep work. You're in the perfect, absolutely perfect place to do that. Part of the reason I love the verse that we read just a minute ago is the end of it. It says, God did not invite us into a disorderly, unkempt life, but a life that's holy and beautiful on the inside as the outside. We live in a world that is obsessed with images, right? If it looks good on Instagram, it must really be good. If you look happy on Facebook, you must really be so very happy. But the life that God calls us into is not about a beautiful image, it's about a beautiful inner life. Let this be the season where you do the hard work of building and rebuilding and grounding your inner life, not just the outer parts of your life. There are two other things I always say on college campuses. In a minute, I'm going to tell you a couple parts of my own spiritual journey since I was in college, actually a season the last couple years in my life. But there are two other things I always say every time I'm on a college campus. The first one is this. One of the most useful phrases that you can start to build into your vocabulary: I don't know. This is a season where it's okay to not know. And guess what? All the seasons are seasons when it's okay to not know. I remember arriving on campus, and the second you arrive, what are you going to major in? I'm like, I don't know where I live yet. And then the second you take your first class, what are you going to do when you graduate? Again, I just found my room. There's this belief, right, that the second you come in, you should know exactly who you are and what you want to be about. And before you leave, you must be absolutely sure about the whole future of your vocational life. This is crazy pants. This is not how any of the rest of life works. I'm 40 years old. If you go to a dinner party with 40-year-old people, and you don't go around the table and be like, what are you going to do exactly right now for the rest of your life? What are you focusing on right now that's going to be the central thing for all the rest of the years you have on this earth? We never talk to each other this way because we've learned that you do something meaningful for 5 years, and you do something else meaningful and different for the next 5 years, and that the things you love are not always the things you do for money, and that sometimes you love your job and sometimes you hate it and sometimes you completely change it. And if you all could give yourselves permission right now to live in the I don't know of so many things, it's by admitting the I don't know that you get to the knowing, not by faking that you know, right? It's by admitting the I don't know that you get to the knowing, but never by faking knowing something that you don't. And so, practice not knowing what you want to study. Practice not knowing what you're going to do this summer. Practice not knowing what you're going to do after you graduate. Because the whole of life is a lot of not knowing. And we sometimes latch on to funny ideas in college about certainty, and then we're tremendously heartbroken to realize that the rest of the world does not operate with the same amount of certainty. Practice saying, I don't know, and practice asking for help from smart people along the path. And then I always say this every time I go to a college. People don't believe me, ever, but I say it every time anyway. Who you are right now, exactly the way God made you, exactly in the season of life you're in right now, you are significant with or without a significant other. You are not... You can tell we all just had Valentine's Day, right? We live in a culture obsessed with romance and couples, and we think you're more valuable if you're part of a partnership. It's simply not true. Who you are is completely, totally worthy of love and grounded in God's love, and it has nothing to do with whether or not you're dating right now. And there's this funny thing on college campuses, Christian college campuses, and I know because I went to one, where there's this expectation that part of what you're here to do is find the person you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with. Statistically speaking, this many of you should do that. So look down your row, maybe one in your row, but not like all these guys. Now you're all like, I'm the one in my row. Part of God's graciousness in my life is that I did not marry anyone I dated in college. Okay? I was asked to speak at a college not too long ago, and they asked a Christian college, much like this one, and they were like, and one of the things we'd love for you to do, we'd love for you to talk to a group of women, you know, just with your story and the things you struggled with. I'm like, right, I've struggled with so many things, totally. Which one are we talking about? And they're like, well, we're going to talk about what it was like for you getting married later in life. I got married the week I turned 25. So like I think the question was like, what were you doing for that real sad 2 years? And I said, like, what was I doing? I was doing a job I loved, and I bought a house, and I traveled, and I did interesting things, and I had friends that I really liked, and I feel like we're on the same page on this. I like that. One of the things I will say, statistically speaking, the person who is absorbing all of your time right now via text message is probably not the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. But maybe, but the people you live with, the people you study with, the people you serve with, might be some of the people who walk through the whole of your life, the hardest and the easiest moments from now till the end of your life. And so, maybe take down the drama about dating and invest yourself very deeply in friendship, because these will be some of the people that walk you through the hardest passages for the rest of your life. Two of my best girlfriends from college, one lives in Reno and one lives in San Francisco. We spent a weekend together in San Francisco, and they were meeting another group of my friends. So Kirsten and Monica are meeting some people that I work with, and one of the women that I work with says, how do you guys know each other? And they said, we went to college together. Monica and I met in August of 1994. She was one of the first people I met when I walked on the Westmont campus, and she's still one of my best friends to this day. And so Monica says, we met freshman year in college. And my friend Leslie says back to her, so you're lifelong friends. And Monica says, not just lifelong, lifeline. These are some of the things that you're building here. We have been to funerals of parents. We have been to the emergency room in the middle of the night. We have flown across the country when things have fallen apart in a marriage or with a child. They stood with me at my wedding. They held my babies. These are the people who are my lifelong, lifeline friends. And so in the same way that I want you to cool it about dating, I want you to really focus on friendships, because they will be some of the handholds that you need all the way through life's journey. So I want to tell you now about this spiritual journey. So there have been kind of two crucial spiritual passages in my life. One was in college, and one was in like the last 4 years. So I've been a Christian for a long time, been a writer for a long time. I've been married for almost 16 years. We have kids. We have little boys who are 5 and 10. And in my mid-30s, when our little guy was a newborn and our older guy was 5, I got to a season in my life where I realized I want my life to be marked by meaning, by depth, by connection to God, connection to my family, connection to people. But if I'm honest, my life is marked by exhaustion and isolation and pressure to perform and anxiety that I'll fail. And I got to a point in my life, I was speaking at an event, and in between, I was going back to my hotel room. So I was laying in a hotel room, fully clothed, shoes on. I had like 10 minutes in my room in between events. And I looked up at the ceiling and I said, God, if anyone else would like to try to live this life I've created for myself, they're welcome to it, but I don't want it anymore. And I want a new way to live. And that set me on a multi-year spiritual journey of counseling and spiritual direction and time alone and silent retreats and asking help from mentors and friends and family members. And what I realized along the way is that even as a lifelong Christian, even though I said and I knew in my brain that God's love was deeply unconditional, unquenchable, unshakable, in my heart, I didn't know that was true, and I was hustling for my worth every single day. My brain knew that God made me and loved me and that his love made me worthy. But if you looked at my calendar, you would say, that woman is knocking herself out to try to prove her worth on this planet every day. So my life was marked by anxiety and fear and pushing and competition and isolation and exhaustion, and it was so different than the life I read about in Scripture and then the life I wanted to lead. And so I went on this multi-year journey. And then I did what you do when you're like a 39-year-old mom in the Midwest and you've been on a spiritual journey. I did what you do. I got some tattoos. I got my first tattoo in high school. I skipped high school and went and got a little tattoo. And I told my parents ahead of time, but because I'm deeply, desperately afraid of needles, they thought for sure I was never going to go through with it. They were like, okay, like she can't even get a shot. Like she's definitely not getting a tattoo. And then I came home and I showed my mom, and my mom was like, Bill, we're going to need you downstairs. And it was fine. And then I got another tattoo in Santa Barbara in college to mark that spiritual journey. And then when I was 39, on a cloudy day in Chicago in May, I went and got some tattoos. But if you're, a mom, so essentially, I have a friend who owns a tattoo shop in the city, and it's so cool. It's like this really stylish, wonderful space. And so he called me I called him and I said, I'd like to get a tattoo. And he said, yeah, you want Jamie. He's the best guy. So I called Jamie, and Jamie's like, sure, I can get you in Friday at 11. And I'm like, you know what? 11 is not super great for a preschool pickup. And he was like, I mean 11 at night. And I'm like, I have not gone somewhere at 11 at night, except the emergency room, for 10 years. I'm not coming to your shop in the middle of the night. So we did what rock stars do. We scheduled 6 weeks out on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 when I could get a sitter. And and my friend Sarah and I went together, and the first tattoo I got was the word yes. Because all of life comes down to the things that you say yes to and the things that you say no to. And in the last several years, what got me in trouble was I was saying yes to the wrong things. I was saying yes to performance and affirmation and achievement, things that would look good on the outside. But remember that verse, as beautiful on the inside as the outside. My life did not feel holy and beautiful on the inside. And so I went through a process of rearranging my yeses and my nos in order to create an inner life that felt holy and beautiful the way God called us to live. And so yes, for me, is a daily reminder. All of us, whether we admit it or not, are saying yes and no every day. What are the things I'm saying yes to? I'm saying yes to love. Yes to connection, yes to marriage, yes to parenting. Yes to things that are hard, yes to getting better, yes to asking good questions. But I'm saying no to a lot of things as well. No to competition, no to hustling for my worth, no to performance and pretending and pushing and proving. And so every day I remind myself, what are the things I say yes to, and what are the things I say no to? And then a heart. For two reasons. First, because one of the most meaningful spiritual practices that really transformed my life the last couple years was the practice of centering prayer. And I'm by no means an expert on it. But what I do now every single day, before I got out of bed, before my feet even hit the ground, I picture a red heart, just like this, like a kindergartner drawing a Valentine. And I remind myself of what God says about us, which is this: there is nothing you can do today, nothing, to earn more of God's love, nothing. There's nothing you can do, no great thing, no great achievement, no great service, no great anything to earn or achieve more of God's love. And there's nothing you can do in this day, not one thing, to ruin or break or squander or destroy his love, nothing. No mistake, no sin, no failure, nothing you forget, nothing you do or don't do. And when I start my day deeply grounded in the truth of God's love for me and for all people, there's nothing I can do to get more, there's nothing I can do to ruin it. Then I walk through the day free, right? You're free to work, you're free to play, you're free to make mistakes, you're free to take risks, you're free to connect deeply, you're free to fall in love, you're free to live a wild, brave, interesting, soulful, connected life because you're not hustling for your value every single day. And then the second reason I got the heart, I'm a lefty. How many of you are lefties? Hey. I'm 40, and I'm looking at the rest of my life, and I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. See, I'm practicing it. I'm practicing saying I don't know. I might keep writing. I might do something totally different. I'm practicing living in the not knowing, but this is what I do know. Whatever I write, whatever I build, whatever I create, whatever I give myself to, with the years I have remaining on earth, the fuel will be love and nothing else. I will not work out of fear or competition or desire to be known or desire to be respected or desire to be the best. The fuel that will power the rest of what I do here on this earth will be love and nothing else. And so those are the challenges that I want to leave you with. If you get a chance this week to have a conversation with someone who knows you really well, talk about what's your yes. What are the things that matter to you more than anything else? Not right or wrong, not the same as anything else, as anyone else, but what matters to you? What are the things that you want to make sure you say yes to? And once you know those things, then it's really easy to figure out what the things are that you say no to. But the world will fill up your yeses and your nos if you let it. You'll get busy. You'll get blown off course. You'll start responding to other people's vision of life for you. My favorite poet, Mary Oliver, has an amazing book that came out this year called Upstream. It's a collection of essays, and one of the lines in it that I love, she says, "You must never, ever stop being whimsical. And you must never, ever let anyone else take responsibility for your life." And that's very profound. When we lose our sense of play, of whimsy, of surprise, of spontaneity, life becomes very gray and very flat. And when we give away responsibility, when we lose our authorship over our own lives, we lose the ability to craft a meaningful, God-word connected life for ourselves. And so what are your yeses? And then what do you want to build or create or be a part of, fueled only and completely by love? Let's pray together. Dear God, thank you for each person in this room. Thank you for the exact way you made each one. Thank you for the things that have been hard and broken and difficult, because we know that you do your best work in our broken hearts. We know that nothing is ever wasted in your economy. And thank you for the parts of their lives that have been easy and vibrant and full. We thank you for the goodness of the world and of the lives that you've given to us. I pray for each person in this room that they would be brave and conscious and wholehearted and present as they move forward in a Godward connected life. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Could we thank Shauna this morning?